Good morning, afternoon and evening, my crazies. My name's Angela, I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady, and welcome back to today's Tried and Tested. This one is crochet amigurumi kits. Are they worth it? Right, so before I start off with the nitty gritty about how I feel about these kits, if you could do me a massive favour, give this video a thumbs up and check that you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any future videos that are coming out. Right, I don't normally ask, but I thought, hey, I might as well this one time. Right, so crochet kits, are they actually worth the money that you pay? So let's think about this. What do you normally get in a kit? You will get some yarn, ideally enough to make the items within the box, or at least the one that's shown. Okay, you will then get a pattern of some sort, and a crochet hook, and a little needle. They don't tell you the size normally or what the crochet hook is. So that can be a bit of an issue if you want to swap for one of your favourite hooks out of your collection. But if you're new to crochet, some people think this is a good idea and this is a really good way to introduce crochet, especially to children. Sorry to say, I slightly disagree with that. Now the last project I made, as I've shown you a couple of pictures here, was this little guy minus his pumpkin. Now the pattern for these, or at least the two kits that I've got from my local Aldi's store during their yarn events, okay, I can only base this on those two patterns at the moment, and I do have some other patterns from other suppliers that I will look into making at a later point, and then I can give you an updated version of whether I think that set of kits was any good. The patterns are written quite briefly, okay. You're told what to do and how to do it, and there's no actual information on how to do the stitch, so you are going to have to work alongside with the child to either show them how to do the stitches that the pattern calls for, or show them videos on YouTube of the basic stitches. On top of that as well, with both the patterns that I've found, they send out mixed message signals. Like for this one, it's round 1, chain 1, 6 DC into a ring. Ideally it would be a chain 2 or use a magic ring. Neither, so it's sort of mismatched the wording on the pattern right on the very first line. This pattern actually wasn't too bad when it came to following the instructions. They are set out quite basic, or at least this one is set out quite basically. It just will say increase. I'm just picking on a round, I'm not telling you which one, but it will say, it starts off with an increase, double crochet in the next DC 6 times, and then the number of stitches you should have at the end of the row. Okay, for anyone that knows, that was around 3 on an amigurumi. Now these patterns were written in English, so of course I need to translate it over to American anyway so that I understand it myself. But in regards to that, with this pattern, it wasn't quite nice and simple because most of it was done in the same stitch. So once you get that into your head that they're not talking about a US double crochet, they're talking about an English double crochet, which is a US single crochet, you're laughing basically. But I do have issues with these patterns, okay. And the kits, both kits I've had different issues with. Now with this guy, I didn't make any mistakes. There was no yarn thrown away. Okay, I didn't muck up a leg or an arm or anything like that. So I should, in theory, have had enough yarn to make the whole guy. All right, I didn't. I ran out of the grey. By the time I'd finished the head, I felt like I was doing yarn chicken. I got through the body, I was celebrating. I made the arms up next, okay, because I thought, well, the tail's at the back. Hopefully I'll be able to find something. So I managed to get the arms and the tail done, but by the time it came to the ears, I didn't even have a gram of yarn left over. And I knew I was going to need more just through experience alone. So of course I had to come in here and raid my yarn stash, which if you've bought this kit for a child, then they're not going to have a yarn stash. They might have a nice family member up the road that they can run to and go, I need this colour, but there's no guarantee. So of course, if this was a kit brought for a child, they would have got very disheartened by the time they got to the ears, because they wouldn't have been able to finish the project. And the pumpkin's not included in the pattern, that was mine. But and the other issue that I had with all of the patterns is that they don't tell you what stitches to sew an item on at. So say you're trying to sew on the arms, let's just pick on the arms. They don't tell you to sew it on row 29, row 30, or whatever it is. Okay, they don't say where to start or to stop. And the same with the ears as well. You would expect them to say, oh, start at round 9 and finish at round 13. But they don't. There is absolutely no real guidance on where to place the parts that you need to sew on. There is also no guidance as to how to sew on. So again, it's another search on YouTube if you've never done it before. So to me, as I said, I don't find the kits overly good anymore. Okay, now I've had these kits sitting on my shelf for 2 years, and yes, in theory they're a nice idea. Yes, in theory you should have enough yarn. I'm a tight crocheter. There should have been plenty left over. There normally is when I do kits and other things like that. But with this one kit, I actually weighed the amount of yarn that was provided, and they gave me 48 grams. Yeah, 48 grams for that one of the grey. And that's the main colour. I would have expected ideally about 60 grams, 50 to 60 grams, like easily 55 to 60 grams, and not a 48 gram ball. Okay, so the other pattern that I tested was a Disney set. Sorry, a Disney set. I can say it because it's meant like that. All right, so it's a Disney set, and it was their Frozen. Now this one again, I do not agree with. They are designed not to be played with. When they're sold, the kits actually say on the packaging not to be played with for display purposes only. Now it's aimed for, I think it's 8 years and up. What 8-year-old child, after spending all that time, will not hug the doll that they have made? It just seems ridiculous. And if nanny or granny's made it, they're going to be wanting to hug it as well. So looking at the problems with the patterns on this one, there were a great deal. Loads and loads and loads of issues. So much so, I've got the book sitting up in one of my files so that if anybody else has this kit and needs assistance and asks, how did I get around it? I can tell you, because I've taken lots of notes. Okay, so let's go down to the table and have a look at what was in the Disney Frozen kit. And then you can tell me in the comments section down below. Is that enough yarn? Is it worth the money that you pay? Right, so this is the amount of yarn that was left over once I'd finished all 4 of the main characters. Okay, so now I'm going to talk you through each of the characters, issues I had, and of course changes that were made. Also, please remember, these dolls are not meant to be made to be perfect. These are just me using up the kit on the quick and working out if there were any issues with these patterns, and yes, there were a few. Okay, so before we start, this book is written in English terms. Okay, it's got some nice artwork. You've got your basic information on stitches at the front. Again, it is written in English terms with the English translation to the side. We have pictures showing you how to do it. No indication that it is actually English term written within the book, and no translation either for transferring it over to American. And go to the first one that I actually made. Oh crikey. Now the first one I made, I chose because it was the easiest to do. Okay, and now that was Olaf. And now here we go. The reason I chose Olaf first is none of these actually had any indication of what the colours were. This is pretty much how it would have arrived. Okay, just larger balls because I'd already used them. Now remember, this is Halloween edition, so my Olaf does not look all happy and cheery. I've got a freaky Olaf. But I did the majority of the pattern the same way that they said to do it. What I have actually changed is I just stitched on some yarn for buttons. Of course, I changed the teeth. I didn't bother making those. I just sewed in some white sections. And of course, I haven't used their googly eyes that are minute and are actually smaller than the eyes that I've sewn on here. Now again, I've just sewn them on awkwardly and added eyebrows that go the wrong way because he's evil. Okay, and for the hair they say just to a single chain, but what I actually did was I single chained and then I worked a slip stitch coming back down each section and joining it in the middle and then coming back up again. No, sorry, they didn't say chain, they just got 2 strands of yarn, and you tied it at the top as you would normally do, and they were more flimsy than these guys. Now these guys, if I wanted to, I could actually put a little bit of wire in there and to make it stronger, and the same with the arms, but I chose not to. Okay, now with him, let me see, how many issues did I find? I found issues with the nose, but other than that, there wasn't any more issues that I wrote and scribbled on. So that's not actually that bad, that there are only the 2 issues. Now, when sewing your head though, make sure that you take into account this weird ridge that they have you create halfway through on the head. I didn't when I sewed it on, so my head, the head should be about here and all of these details should be around here, but to be honest, I don't care. So hence Halloween freaky. Okay, so that's number 1 done. And then they've got basic information on where you sew in and on what round you sew in, but it doesn't go into lots of detail. And I'm just checking if they actually show you. No, they don't tell you how to sew in either. So if you've got this kit and you don't intend to display it, because of course you're not meant to give it to kids to play with, it's a good idea to use these patterns to test different methods of sewing parts on, so that you know which method you like the most and what works for you. Now there are a lot of different tutorials on YouTube where you can find that information out. If I remember, I'll link them in the description box and down below. Okay, so next one up, of course I had to do it, didn't I? I skipped to Elsa. This is what she's meant to look like, and again they've given us buttons. Now these buttons are so small, good luck finding a needle to go through the hole. Now another thing that they do with these is they tell you to glue the hair onto the head. In the UK, we shouldn't be using extra things like that if you intend to sell your dolls. Right. Now, I didn't finish it off by adding the extra detail on the dress. I really didn't see the point. But I made her anyway. Now, as you can see, there's a bit of extra writing on every page of this. Yes, it got bad. It got really bad, including no photographs of a cape. Might not sound that awkward, that difficult, but when making it, you've really got to understand what you're doing with these kits and understand the language that is used, because if you don't, and like you're a first-time crocheter, this is going to really annoy you. Okay, now also with this kit, as you can see, I've got 4 blues here that I've bundled up together. If you have the kit, this is where you can work out, and you haven't used it, this is where you can work out what colours I used for what doll. Now the first 2 blues here are a baby blue and a bright blue. Okay, the other 2 is a dark blue and a grey blue. Okay, so these first 2 are the colours that I used to make Elsa. So here she is. Again, she looks scary. Now, one thing I did like, I've got to pull out the dids. One thing I did like were the ears. I think they are really cute. Okay, so that's something that I may end up taking with me to future patterns. But what I didn't like was the construction of these. You start off working from the head down, and then you get to the stomach and you cut your yarn. That's not normal. That really isn't normal. But then what they make you do is you do the feet, and you work from the feet up, you join the legs, and then you sew it in the middle. Yeah, how long will that last? I do not know. Okay, and then of course, once you've done that, you add your hair, you sew on your arms, and then of course make all the clothing. Okay, so problems I had were on the head and the torso. They say fasten off the dark cream and join a light blue yarn to your piece. But the pattern repeat was wrong on this section. Where did, and I can't remember why. I think it was because, if I remember rightly, the torso count did not match the trouser count. Okay, so when you finish this trouser, there was more stitches left in the bottom half than what there was in the top half. So be cautious of that. That happened on this doll and one of the other ones, which I will show you in a second. Now, when it came to, of course, making the cape, the rest of this was self-explanatory. If you follow along, it's okay. When it came to making the cape, of course, there's no photographs, and it is a little confusing. Now, you make this in one piece. You start off with a chain going all the way around, and then you work a certain amount of stitches halfway through the chain, okay, and then come down. Reasonably easy and simple once you understand how they've written the pattern. Now, I've also sewn this to the top of the sleeves because, of course, it's pointless. The clothes will not be getting removed. Now, the seam itself started all the way down here, and this bit was meant to be left open. You're meant to add, of course, another row of stitches to make it nice and neat, and buttonholes and things like that. No, not bothering, not doing that. Now, when it came to putting the arms into the sleeves, they are extremely tight. So if you're going to do this one, I would actually suggest possibly adding another stitch in the round. Oh no, it's not worked in the round, it's worked in the flat. So add another stitch into the flat and work that. It's going to make the seaming under the arms a little bit different, but of course you can cover up any extras when you go to sew on the cape. Okay, so there she is, and no, she hasn't got her hair glued. What I've actually done is 2 rows of hair, but it was only one strand. They do say in here to split the yarn, which I didn't do, but in future, in the next style, I did the hair slightly differently and it makes it a lot thicker. I've also taken a one strand from the front, and then I've picked up a loop, single crocheted down, and then slip stitched back up, and then tuck the end in the head to create this little section here. They said just cut a couple of strands off. I didn't see the point. She hasn't got enough hair. It looks long, but it's not enough. Also, the measurements for the hair are off. In the pattern they say cut 50 times 30 centimeters. That, and if you're folding it over like you would normally do, that will bring the hair to about here. Okay, so certainly not long enough. So what I actually did was I reversed the number and I cut 30 strands of 50 centimeter. But to be honest, what I would do is cut them in blocks of 10 or 5, and that way you're not going to be wasting more yarn than you actually need. Right, so that's her. As I said, they're not designed to look nice, they're designed to look scary. Now the next doll up is Anna, and here is my scary take on her. To be honest, I don't think she looks too bad. Okay, so I've reversed her hair, but do you know what? I don't care. Right, again, she was meant to have button eyes, which she didn't do. And I've also put on a button, put on a nose. And the trick for that one is to run your strands through a needle and work both sides, so you haven't got an end as such. You tuck it through and you go backwards and forwards over, what have I gone, 2? Yeah, over 2 stitches, backwards and forwards until it sits up as high as you want, and then of course you pull your yarn back through and tie off. Now I've done all of the different components for her that she is meant to have. I just haven't added on the fine details, as you can see here in the picture. Now when I was doing it, I was like, crikey, this collar is ugly for the neck. This section is ugly for the neck, but don't panic. They give you a collar that you make and you sew it on in the same spots, and it covers any ugly colour change. Also with the boots, they do this very cheeky little method where you work front loop in one row and back loop with your new colour in the next row. If you're following along with the pattern, do the back loop section first before doing, I think it's round 12. Do round 13 first and then revert back to round 12. Okay, by doing it that way you can actually see what you're doing and you're not having to argue with your yarn as much. Now I've done that for this one, and I've also done that for the next one up. Now she has got, again, a cute little knickers on, but again her waist size was wrong. The stitch counts between the two were off. Now it's also giving you a cute little detail on the bottom of the skirt, which again is made using a front loop and a back loop stitches on one of the rounds. Again, do the lighter shade first and come back and do the top section, dark part of the skirt. As for the rest of it, it's not too bad. Don't get me wrong, I had to work this one out again. I think how many, what we got a round wrong on round 14 again. That is to do with the stitch counts. What else have I got? Yeah, so right, and then we come on to the hair. Yeah, so I've gone through most of the mistakes that are in this pattern. It's the same as with Elsa, as you can see. Look at the state of my sewing. I don't care. Right. Now when it came to doing the hair this time round, I used 2 full strands and I pulled that up and over, and I went all the way around, as you can see, between both ears. Then I added 3 in front to create this section here. then I noticed we were meant to glue again. Now, as I said, I don't do gluing. So what I did was I separated the two front sections in half and found my center seam. There I ran another row of 2 strands all the way down, and I divided the 2 strands between each plait. I also placed in an extra one in the corners at the top. So there was an extra one here, and there's 2 more there. Okay, so there's an extra 3 hiding underneath, because as I separated the hair, she had a bigger bald spot than I've got. So that's why I did that. And to be honest, by doing it that way, it holds the plaits down quite nicely. And then of course I've done the plait and I've trimmed off the excess. Now again, that was at least a 30 times a 50 centimetre chain. 30 times a 50 centimetre length. Okay, so there she is. There's my scary, not so scary one this time, but she's still scary. The younger sisters always are. I'm a big sister, can you tell? Right, next up, were there any others? Yeah, there was also no photographs in regards to the cape on this one as well. And so just take your time with that. Now, by the time I got to Christoph, yes, I am super annoyed with these patterns. Yes, I am looking for ways to make myself happier. So when you see Christoph, understand I was in a very sarcastic mood. He doesn't look too bad from the front. His hair's very wonky, but I really couldn't be bothered. Sorry, too bad from the back even. From the front, I gave him a moustache and a mono brow. I couldn't resist. There are times when you want to make yourself happy, and just doing silly things like this works. Again, he's been given a bigger button nose, so that's worked over 3 stitches, and of course these are extra details that I put on the arm in the pattern. When it came to doing his hair though, oh, it was an absolute nightmare. And they tell you to cut up a certain length of strands and tie a knot in the middle and basically glue it to the top of the head. Yeah, I did it the way they told me, but before I'd done that, I'd already done a round of hair coming around the bottom there, so before he had his hat on and the rest of his hair. I wish I'd taken a photo, but I'm sorry I didn't. He was bald. He had a dodgy comb over. And when you added this top knot section to the top, it looked like a really bad wig. Sorry, I'm going to just take myself off for a second and calm down. Okay, I'm back. I think I'm in my normal state now. Maybe not, there's slight giggles. Okay, so with this pattern you had the same issues as before. The body and the feet do not, the stitch count in the middle does not count. Yes, my legs are slightly wonky because I think I've got an extra round in there. He's actually sort of skewy all the way. He's got one arm longer than the other and one leg longer than the other. I don't care. You may want to check the pattern if the same happens to you and reduce around in one of the legs. Right, again we had that magic little trick that I do like, where you work the front loop in one colour and the back loop in another to hide the colour differences. Loved that. What I didn't do was the edging that they had said in the book, because when I did it, it looked too clumpy and really quite vile. So all I've done here is slip stitched, or surface crochet, depending on what you want to call it, surface crocheted around the last round here, and I've also done the same along the neck in 2 colours and around, and I've done single crochets only around the arms. Now this to me is a little bit of a waste of product. I understand, right, you're not meant to play with it, so why do they make it so that the clothes can be removed? And if you look, there is no information on how to do the joins and change the colour. and it also takes you half an hour to try and get it back on. Now his arms look the same length. Bonus. That's because it's not on properly. In regards to this one, it is a lot more simple to do. You only have these 2, 3, 4 extra pieces to do. So you've got the outside shirt, you've got a simple belt, and then of course you've got your 2 gloves. They're the only and the hat with the bobble. They're the only extras that you need to do on this one. So if you've never done amigurumi before, don't try this kit. But if you've got it, this one would probably be the simpler one to do. Also, by the way, he's got 2 left feet. That's because of the way they've written the pattern. They don't take into account that when you repeat it, you get an identical. When in fact you need a right foot instead of 2 left. But anyway. What have we got on this one that I've written in? No major issues. If you have this kit and you do need extra guidance, drop me an email. My email will be in the description box down below, and I will give you all the extra details that I have on how I've done this pattern. Now, as you can see here, this is how they expected you to add on and glue hair. Yeah, as I said, I did it my own way. Just because I couldn't be bothered. So my main issue for this pattern is actually the hair. Right, so that's all of them done. Right, so they and the 4 main characters, that's the ones that they advertise that you can make from the kit. Now, this is all the yarn that's left. Now they give you 2 extra patterns. You've got Sven, check the name, yep, Sven, and of course a boulder. So this morning I sat down and I thought, right, do you know what, I'm going to make Sven. So I looked and it says light brown, and I'm like, yay, I have some left. I wonder if that'll be enough for his entire body. It's worth a shot. Then it says white yarn, and I'm like, okay, I have some of that left, but I also have some of this off-white as well. Either one of those I could use. Then it was a dark brown. Here's my issue. Where are you hiding? Oh no, don't tell me I've lost it. I've gone and lost it. Yeah. The white brown was about this much, and there was probably enough for about 3 stitches. So I can't do it. I've got enough black. That's in the other room, I forgot to bring it. But yeah, so I can't make Sven. Not a problem. That saves me getting irate. So I'm going to move on and see if I can get away with making a boulder. And now I've already had a sneaky look at this one, and I know the directions and the images for this one are using 2 different colours. In this, it's showing a grey and 2 shades of green. Now you've only got 1 shade of green in the kit that's left. Actually, you only had 1 shade of green throughout. So is it going to work with this colours? I don't know. Now what they say to use is a light green, a dark green, a yellow, a red. Explain to me, where's the red? And a dark green. So that's 2 shaded green, and that's in this section here. But as soon as you get on to the torso, it says with light beige yarn. Okay, light beige. I think that's light beige. Or was that the cream? No. Or was that the beige? I don't know. But basically, using one of those, you're going to make the head and torso. It's meant to be grey in the picture, but it isn't. So I'm now going to head off and make 2. One being in the grey and 1 being in the white. Might as well have some fun with it. See you in a bit. Right, so with Boulder, I have actually made him. I haven't finished putting it all together. I'm not bothering, okay? He's got his ears attached there. Trying to work out how they fit so that they look the same as the images just did my head in. So I gave up. Once he has had me laughing though, because when he's not dressed and he didn't have his nose on and he didn't have his arms on, he looked quite rude. Really rude. Looked like something you'd buy from Ann Summers for yourself. Yeah, so in regards to Boulder, no, I'm not even going to attempt to make it in the grey. I'm not going to waste my own stash of yarn. The pattern on this one was also quite awkward. You make the toes as you go. Now, I make more intermediate patterns normally, and I like to find weird and wonderful stitches within the patterns that either create something like toes or give you extra shaping and things like that. So I can do them, but this knocked my brain out of gear. It really did. So much so I did it my way on one and their way on the other, so that you could see the difference between the two styles there. So that's my way and that's their way. That's my way, that's their way. So I wouldn't actually bother adding those stitches, to be honest, if I made it again, which I'm not. When it came to the arms, they're actually wider than the feet. Sorry, the hands are wider than the feet, and I was like, he's gonna look so wrong, but he was already looking very wrong. You've got a weird and wonderful way of set of stitches around the neck here, because he doesn't actually have a neck, so they do a lot of weird and wonderful shaping when it comes to working the head and things like that. Now that was interesting to do, although confusing. It was interesting once it sunk in. And a positive, the top and the bottom had the same stitch count. Bonus! 1 out of 4 ain't bad, is it? 5 ain't bad, is it? But yeah, I won't be making Boulder again in grey. And the patterns as well, you needed to be a lot more experienced. Now I started off with amigurumi. Okay, that's how I learned to crochet, was through amigurumi, because it's one stitch and you go round and round. And yes, back then I did watch tutorials. Back then, if I didn't know how to do something, I would find a tutorial on YouTube that would show me how to do it. So I had that mindset of, I'm stubborn, I will do. And I think with these kits, that's definitely a mindset that you need. You need the, I'm stubborn, I will find out how to do it. And of course the other mindset of, I'm not giving up, I'm not wasting my cash, is another one as well. Okay, so I really have been waffling with this video today. So let me think, would I buy a crochet kit for a kid? No, but what I would do is make my own up, which we can all do. Okay, I would find a pattern that I know that the child is absolutely going to fall in love with and want to make. Okay, so their favourite TV programme, their favourite animal, basically whatever they're fixated on at that point, I would find a pattern for it. Ideally with a YouTube tutorial. And then I would raid my stash and I would find a nice basic yarn. Okay, so nothing too expensive, but a nice basic yarn, and find all of the colours that they would need for that pattern, and of course, and make sure that they have plenty in the nanny made kit. Okay, and then I would box that up and say to them, look, this is something special that I've made just for you. Nobody else will have this kit. This is yours just for you. And set it up like that, so that then you know they've got enough product to make the item. They've got a perfectly well written pattern, and of course a video tutorial to match, so that if there's any help needed, they can reach out and watch that video time and time again, so that they know it's right for them. Would I waste money buying a kit from a shop? No, definitely not. To me now, the kits are really worthless. None of the patterns I would make again. I would search out and find better written patterns. So I think that's basically me winding down now to say Kits are rubbish. Save your cash. Buy yarn. Right, I'm going to head off now. I will see you all really, really soon. So please remember, stay chilled, stay happy and keep crafting. Goodbye, everybody.